Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Ones Ready podcast. Jared, what is up with that hoodie? I've never seen one like that before. It looks extremely
Ooh,
comfortable. And is that
that's
sport
is that
technology or something?
olive drab?
It is.
Oh my
Kinda helps
goodness!
when
Look
you're
how
talking
good
to
it
the mic,
looks.
right?
Oh my
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that. And it's
So-
super soft on the inside. It's that sport tech. We've got olive drab and heather gray and all that kind of good stuff over at the store. So check us out at onesready.com and hit that shop. We also have a couple more of these hats, even though they're not advertised. They're a mystery item. But if you
Nice.
order a mystery item, you could get a flag, a shirt, hoodie. Well, actually, no, you won't get a hoodie because that would be at a severe discount, but like a really, really big discount. But the mystery item is, flags, shirts, a hat. So go check it out for sure.
So obviously we have the hoodies
I
in
lo-
kid sizes. What else do we have in kid sizes?
Oh wow, the kids. We already got it. That's wow. I love it. Just starting off
That was
hot.
awesome. That was
That's a
pretty good.
one. Okay.
Man, between yesterday and today, I like these. I
I
like
don't know
this
where the
Trent,
thing
this
yesterday came from.
NCOA
I know.
Trent.
Yeah, I got a lot of pent up.
Dude, you were on
aggression.
fire yesterday.
I just show up to class, try to put my positive mental attitude on. Anyway, speaking of goals, right? One of my goals right now is to graduate without burning the place down. The way that I set goals, I put this out on our group text yesterday, and I really only wrote 3 things down, and I don't want to go too much into it without hearing what the other guys have to say about it. But when I'm setting goals, but the 3 things that I look at are the minimum standards, then realistic goals, and then my aspirational goals. And so, like, to put it in perspective easily, right, is your IFT. Your IFT, there's the minimum standard that you have to hit to get into dev and then also to ship. And then your realistic goals. And I think when we did the IFT episode, we did a pretty good job of setting out realistic goals, the ones ready standard for folks. And then there's the aspirational goals, right? Like running, 5-minute miles or whatever else like that. So, but outside the realm of the physical, this is how I break down goals. So I just wanted to, sit down with my 2 favorite people and chit chat about goal setting and how they do it and pick their brains a little bit. Aaron, what you got?
Well, I love the way that you broke it down, right? Because you have to have a realistic goal. So the goal setting in those 3 categories, perfect explanation, right? There's the minimum standard. That's what I need to be successful. When you're in the pipeline, newsflash, everybody, 70% is an acceptable standard for nearly everything. Like the way that we train, like we set up minimum standards for a reason. That's why there are minimum standards. Is it acceptable to constantly only hit those minimum standards? Absolutely not. But you need to know exactly what those are, right? Like your floor, the worst that you do at any given event should be the minimum standard. That's it. You should never fail. The worst that you do on your worst day should be the minimum. And that's how we live our lives. So it's a weird thing inside of our career fields, but basically we have a standard. Once you achieve that standard, you're expected to maintain that your entire career. And this goes for everything: shoot, move, communicate, medicate, JTAC, SR stuff, TAC-P stuff, everything. So once you get that skill, there's a little line item and you literally sign it off. You're expected to maintain that minimum standard your entire career at any time. So, for instance, the very first line in all of our training plans in our Bible of what it is to be a PJ, SR, TAC-P, CCT, the very first line is maintains physical standards in accordance with, and then it lists out the reg, right? That means at any time I can walk into any team room and I could point at any person and go, PT test. We're doing an OFT right now. I don't care how tired you are. You should be able to meet the minimum standard, period. Now it's different. Like what's acceptable to me is different. That's moving on into that second one. And then what do I aspire to do? That's a completely different thing. But if we're talking about step 1, minimum standards, you need to know them cold. You need to accept what they are. And no matter what's going on, you better be able to do that minimum standard. We have a minimum standard for the 1-man drill. And I use this a lot because I was terrible at ropes and tech rescue in general when I started my career. And I had to do a lot of work. I just never done it before. I was not a mountain climber. I'd never touched a rope system in my life. I had to learn everything on the go, and I wasn't good at it. It took me a long time to pick it up. But there's a drill, the 1-man drill, where you essentially start at the top of a wall or a mountain, and you do a whole bunch of stuff. You rappel down, you hook a patient up, then you ascend, and there's a knot bypass, and then you make a system, and then you haul stuff up. There's a minimum standard for that. I have done a lot of work to maintain that minimum standard. For a long time, I couldn't. For a long time, like I was busting the timeline all the time, and that's not acceptable, right? So I had to work to get to that minimum standard. I'm proud to say now, you walk into my office, even as an admin dork that hasn't touched a rope in a little bit, I can still knock that one man out at the minimum standard. Is it what I aspire to be? No, I need to do a lot more work, but that's for the minimum standard. And I love how you parse this out, Trent, in 3 kind of blocks. But for the minimum standard, I think that's where I land.
Man, I was thinking about the OFT just rolling in, and for me, just for me personally, yeah, I can pass an OFT on the spot. The only one that it could be if it's that run, that 1.5 mile run. If you don't have a pool, then you got to do that run.
That run sucks.
Like, man, my hammies and hip flexors are taxed.
I'm swimming all day. That the OFT is easy to pass. Okay, it's almost impossible to max out, and that's for a reason. But man, that 1.5 mile run, I'm swimming all day, dude. That run is super hard.
After all the deadlifts, the side to side,
the shuttle,
the shuttle. Oh, the shuttle.
Shuttle's the worst. That shuttle run hurts.
Yeah, that's the only spicy moment for me is the 1.5 mile if I can't swim. But that's a whole different topic, which we've actually covered in another episode. But Spec Believer, I don't know if you guys are following him on the gram, but he put something. Yeah. I don't know if I know him or not, but he put something out there the other day talking about JTAC evaluations, and I want to. This ties into the minimum, so I'm not going off on a tangent here, but like we train and put each other through difficult evals. Like there is a crawl, walk, run progression in terms of everything that we do, right? But a JTAC eval is an evaluation, so it should be challenging, but it shouldn't be I'm going to purposely set this scenario up and make it so difficult so that you fail. That is what we do in training, not evaluations. Mm-hmm. And that often gets lost on a lot of people because a lot of people they don't necessarily get a gatekeeper personality, but it is like, well, this was done to me, so it should be done to you.
Yeah, it's 100% what it is. Right.
Okay. Well, maybe it's a different mentality for me. I don't know, but like, I want to bust your ass and make you fail in training so that you don't do it when it actually matters, on target or day one of a war or night one of a war. You know what I mean? So like, that's just my mentality. And he put that out in a meme, which was excellent.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that I haven't made that same mistake early on, as I've matured, I've understood that process, but like, man, fail in training so that you don't have to fail in combat.
Yeah.
It goes right back to NDOC. Even NDOC or even the pipeline now on evaluation day, there is no extra training.
Nope.
There is no operant conditioning. There's no, hey, I'm gonna mess with you guys, and you gotta be over here by in some unrealistic timeline. It is, hey, we're doing an eval today. Here's the schedule of events. Here's what's happening, and you're gonna do it. And the cadre won't they'll barely even talk to you.
It was the first time that cadre evals used to be on Mondays. I don't know how they're doing it now, but it was a completely different vibe. Like, no kid, they wouldn't even stress you out. Now, are they keeping tick marks of all of your mistakes? And are you going to pay for those at the end of the eval? Oh, yeah. We still have accountability, ladies and gents. However, they would even their personalities would change. Like, you would come in on Monday and it was 100%. It was like game time evaluation. They would come out. Nobody was raising their voices. They're just like, hey, gents, we got some work we got to do. Let's get this knocked out. Do what you're supposed to do. And that's it. And like, it's kind of a tangent, but we just recently, so this is in the last 6 months, we finally published what we're calling the ST instructor and ST evaluator actual training plan to certify people in ST to be instructors and evaluators. And when you start talking about evaluators that don't know the difference between a really hard training event and what an evaluation is supposed to be, it's because if you've never worked in AETC and you weren't trained to be an instructor, you don't know how to draw that line. And in ST, there was no in the pararescue community, right? There was a formalized training plan. You were expected to be an IJ, right? An instructor, PJ. You did that usually around 5 level. And then when you're a 7 level, you're a team leader for a little bit. There was a formalized upgrade to be an evaluator. And we had a formalized training plan that you would go through and to be like, here's the difference between instruction and evaluation. And here's how you conduct an evaluation. And here's how you brief the student beforehand. So ST, TACP, CCT, the PJs on the ST side of the house, unless you had an instructor duty behind you, you didn't even know those things. And like AETC and the AppSpec War Training Wing have invested millions of dollars and decades into becoming valuable and like professional instructors. And ST just had that. So you see it, I see it way more often on the ST side of the house than on the ACC side of the house. But those instructors, when they don't know how to flip the switch from instruction to evaluation, they don't know how to go, in instruction, it's totally okay to throw the kitchen sink at a dude and watch him fail and be like, hey, you failed, you got to be better. But then you have to be able to dial it back. And again, minimum standard for the evaluation, there's a minimum passing score. That means that student was not perfect. That means they screwed some things up. As long as they weren't like no fail items, you got to let them. A 71% is still a pass. Is it the greatest? Is it what you want to see out of your student? No, but it's still a pass.
Well, so when you guys were going through the pipeline, do you remember any times where you saw and were able to set those realistic goals or aspirational goals, so maybe helped out by your instructors or through events that you went through where you're like, oh, like this is where I need to be to optimize my performance. You know what I mean? But like, I think I can get to this place, but like you're passing the minimum standards. Was there anything like that where you got kind of opened up your eyes and saw kind of where you want to go?
Yeah. Well, through, verbal mentorship, of course, but also on 2 different occasions, like at least in training, I'm thinking of like monster mashes, right? Monster mashes. And for those that don't know, a monster mash it's an event that we like to do in special tactics. I'm not sure. I think you guys do it on the RQS side of the house too, but, so AppSpec War likes to do these, and I've heard you will do it in the pipeline.
Yeah. No, STTS just brought them back too. They put that out. They're going to do, I think, once a month, just like we do with the units.
Yeah. And it's phenomenal. It's one of my favorite events. As you know, Aaron, because I always fought for them. We'd always do them at the 2-2, but it's a series of events that can take, if you're going to do like a monster mash sprint, it could be 45 minutes all the way up to 3-5 hours long.
Yeah, whole morning.
And it's a series of events that are problem solving, memorization, a lot of physicality involved with it. A lot of physicality, carrying boats, dragging Hurt and Herman bodies, medical scenarios, radio scenarios, JTAC scenarios, all that, weapons assembly. If you saw the lightning challenge that TACPs did, a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So it's a lot of fun, but you are there with a team of however many people, maybe it's 3, 4, 5, and it's a way for you to have fun, but also exercise your knowledge base and your conditioning. And when you are hurting really, really bad and no one else is, that is one of those things go, okay, well, whatever I've been doing, whether I've been lazy or whatever I've been doing in the gym isn't working out for me because I am hurting way too bad. And these folks around me are crushing me right now.
Mhm.
And now I am the weak link. And as soon as I start to feel like I'm the weak link in it, like, dude, I start ramping it up a lot.
Yeah.
So that for me, and I could translate that to on target. Like I know there was one rotation where I came from England, so it's not like we have mountains and stuff or easily accessible mountains that are massive like the ones in Afghanistan. So I wasn't conditioned for mountains. And that first month, it took me a while and I was hurting really, really bad walking up those mountains.
Yep.
But that motivation and that peer competition or whatever you want to call it made me ramp up my conditioning. So
Yeah.
that's me.
I always equate it to the pipeline. You know what I mean? Like, so if you're just hitting the minimum standards every week, even though Mondays are usually, more relaxed and less stress, you can put a lot of stress on yourself knowing you're right close to that line. Like, that is not a comfortable feeling because you can't, they call it redlining. You can't double red an event. So let's say you fail push-ups one time, the next time you have to pass and that number gets bigger. So the next time it's a bigger number. So you fail at 65 push-ups. Next Monday, you don't get to do 65 push-ups. You got to do 70 push-ups. And if you don't pass, that double red puts you into a status where they look at you like going on in the course. So a realistic, and I was always close on pull-ups for whatever reason. My body does not do pull-ups well. I even at my most in shape, I was struggling right on that line. I got to tell you, that's stressful. It's stressful as shit to worry every single day. So for me, my realistic goal setting had to sound something like, all right, even though I only owe 8 pull-ups this week, I got to knock like 11 out because I have to be ahead of the game in order. Like, aspirational goal, of course, I would want to do 15 pull-ups and never worry about it, 20 pull-ups. And I would, I would completely delete that stress from my life. But for me, that realistic goal setting had to be, okay, I want to be a couple over the minimum, because being right on that line, like, if I injure myself, if I tweak something, if I wake up and I'm having an off day, you can't ride that line. You can't ride the minimums, because if you dip below it, now we have a problem. And now, like, now you're stressed.
So real quick, because I think it's important to highlight, and we've done this we've talked about this in the past, but you mentioned your pull-ups and how stressful it is.
Yeah.
And we talk about like how much conditioning or how in shape do I need to be for the pipeline.
Yep.
And we have said it, lots of people always said it, hey, the pipeline is 80% mental, 20% physical.
Yep.
But if you can get to a point where you are so physically fit that most of the stuff in the pipeline doesn't bother you, or you're not worried about it, that's freeing up 20% of stress of your mental bandwidth to help you navigate the pipeline, which is extremely heinous. So
the funny thing about me is at Indoc, I was fine in the water. Like, it was stressful and it was hard, but I think I went something, I always joke with my team on this. I went something like 3 weeks in a row and didn't even fail a water event. I could do ditch and dawn at Indoc in something like 10 seconds. And it used to make the instructors super mad. I would just go down. I just had my thing. Like, I would take an extra 2 or 3 seconds to make sure it's okay. And I would come back up. It was barely a breath hold for me. So the instructors frequently, Chief Ron Thompson, who is retired now, and Aaron Butler, which was every student has an instructor that's their bugaboo, right? Like, you screw something up and you turn around and there's that one instructor and you're just always like, son of a bitch. That was Aaron Butler for me. He's a PA now, but every time I screwed something up, I would turn around and Aaron Butler, he was this very quiet dude. He would just be like, love. So like, I was really good at that. So to talk about the stress piece, no kidding. When on those Mondays, when I got done with essentially like the cows and the run, when I got done with the cows, like, as long as my pull-up numbers were okay, I turned my brain off. I was like, water, I got it. Like, you're not gonna get me at buddy breathing. You're not gonna get me at underwaters. Like, these things, like, I'm not popping. Like, I don't care what you do to me in the pool. I'm totally fine. And for me, like, imagine if you can put yourself in that position where everybody else around you is completely stressed out. And me, I'm just like, oh, well, it's another training day. Everybody else is like freaked out about the pool and how am I going to do this? Am I going to be able to tread today? And legitimately, I was able to step back and just, move the team around and do things that were actually helpful.
Yeah, but like I think it's one of those things, like, once you've met the minimum standards, it's like what do you set next as your realistic standards? Like, what goals are you setting? Like, for me, it was, eval days should be easy, right? Eval days are easy days because they're just PT. As a smaller dude, my minimum standard / realistic goal on long ruck marches and multi-day movements through the woods was basically survive and do your job and don't die. You know what I mean? In the beginning, and then 150 pound Trent was really on the struggle bus with that. But then, like, it's like outside of that, Like, so that's like the minimum standard, but also my realistic standard. Like, how else do I provide value to the team? And like, I'm not going to be like, well, at the same time, I'm going to increase my deadlift, become a monster rucking, and still maintain like my
Right.
standards and all these other things. So I think we struggle sometimes when we get these DMs where kids are like, well, I want to do PJ and then the CIA, and then be president of the United States. It's like, okay, but like, and also physically people be like,
Not
hey man, like,
everybody's RJ Casey.
yeah, I don't want to ship until like I'm running 5-minute miles, doing 30 pull-ups and doing 800 push-ups. It's like, hey man, like, I'm not trying to crush your dreams, but like, where are you right now? And have you met the minimum standards? And then we can talk about what happens after that. And it's like a rolling process too. It's not like your minimum standard changes over time, and so does your realistic and aspirational standard. You know what I mean? So, figuring out where you are first and where you stand is, I think, the most important piece. And then having to do that re-eval on a regular basis, right? Because like when you graduate the pipeline, the minimum standard on like the AFSOC PT test is the max, right? Like nobody talked about the minimums on the AFSOC PT test. Everyone's just like, if someone walked up to you and was like, what's the minimum standard? It's like, hey, what? I don't know. 16 pull-ups is the minimum.
I don't know.
That's the max. It's like, oh, well, that's our minimum,
Oh, well, that's, yeah.
So just that reevaluation stage, I think, is very important. What do you guys think?
Yeah, and it's going to change at different times too. Like as guys and gals go through the pipeline, when you're getting ready to go in, your only focus should be on the IFT. Your goals in those 3 buckets, the minimums, the realistic standards, and then what you aspire to do should solely be focused on the IFT. And we've talked about this a million times, like specifically for you in that phase, the only thing you should be doing is run, swim, cows, and being on your feet for long periods of time, because that's what the data shows is the most successful, or the data shows that the people that are most successful have a lower run time. They're able to be on their feet for long periods of time. Yep. They're not doing the minimum standard. So that's what you should be focusing on. Your goals should be focused in that area. Now, later in the pipeline, and especially, for the PJs, we would see it when they get to Kirtland. Now it's time to start throwing some weight around. Now it's time, because we're going to ask you to put on a quarter of your body weight and climb a rope ladder. Okay, well, you're going to need to do different training then. Pull-ups and push-ups ain't going to get you there. You're going to have to do some weight training. You're going to have to do some metabolic conditioning, because we're going to ask you to sprint with a quarter of your body weight on, 200 yards, drag something, and then sprint another 200 yards back. So that's different training. And you should be able, when you're doing goal setting, and this is an important thing, goal setting should be a formalized process. You should sit down and you should write down, what is it that it's like mission planning. The first thing that I always tell people when I'm teaching mission planning, troop leading procedures, or MDMP, the military decision-making process, I always focus on, what is this? What mission were you given? Do you understand what you're supposed to do? You should do the same thing with your goals. Okay, what's my goal? I want to smoke the IFT. Okay, so what does that look like? What are the minimums? Write the minimums down. How would you feel comfortable? Okay, that's realistic. Where are you now? Where do you think you can go? All right, now if I really buckle down and everything goes perfectly, no injuries, no problems, this is my gold standard. You need to write that down. And then when you get done, right, when you crush that goal like you said you were going to, it's time to look at that list and go, okay, now what? Now I'm in the pipeline. Now I have different goals. And now I need a goal set, and I need to come up with like a more formalized plan. And I think people screw that up all the time. They have this nebulous idea like, oh, I want to be a PJ. Okay, that's not helpful. That's a good goal. You aspire to be a PJ. How are you going to get there? Like you need to lay out step 1 through 3 before step 4 and magic happens and you get a maroon beret. Like you need to figure that out.
I think that process, those steps that you're talking about, are why people like, I guess, like One's Ready exists, or some of these other, organizations exist to help navigate that, because it can be daunting. If I say, hey, I aspire to be a PJ,
it's impossible.
It's
an impossible task.
Like, right? I don't. Okay, so where do I start? I know that you have to be physically fit. Okay, cool. Like, let me do research. Always do some research.
Always.
Right? ask some questions that are maybe some outlying questions. If you're like, man, I have searched for this info, I can't find it. Everybody I've talked to just doesn't have a straight answer. Like, okay, cool. But uh, it's navigating that path and that whatever. Man, I'm lost right now. But
It started off
I
great.
admit that. Yeah. Anyway, see, you need a path.
There you go.
Like I'm not personally, I'm not a write down kind of person, but when you equate it to the MDMP and receiving a mission and stuff like that, like, commander's intent, like I will write that down. That is part of it. That goes on the whiteboard. Like, what is the mission? Right? So that we can always go, everything that we're doing, we can go right back and look and go, is what we're trying to get after, is that part of the mission? Is that accomplishing commander's intent? If it is, okay, cool. We're on the right path. If it's not, okay, then we need to adjust. And maybe there's some subtasks in there, which usually there are some subtasks, but as long as the main goal is being hit, we're good to go.
Well, and the way I would break this down, if you're out there listening and you're like, hey, how do I get started? And I've talked about this before. Your minimum standard is what? Work out 5 days a week. And so you meet your minimum standard by getting to the gym 5 days a week or wherever it is that you're working out, right? Your realistic goals are like, I want to do, max set of like, I want to do like 100 push-ups a day, 100 sit-ups a day, whatever it is, wherever you're starting from, right? So that's your realistic goal. But like your minimum standard needs to be get to the gym 5 days a week. Like if you start out with like your aspirational goal of something ridiculous, like you're never going to get there if you're starting from zero. And so, I mean, I still do that. I still say like my minimum standard is just to get to the gym 5 days a week. And at this point in my life, like the rest of it kind of takes care of itself. But that consistency is the first step in anything, really, any of the goals you're going to set.
Yep.
So,
dude, I just went through this. So as we know, I have a pre-existing bad back injury, right? So my SI joint's all screwed up. Every once in a while it happens. I don't know what frequency it happens, but it's always something dumb. This time I was putting a dumbbell away literally on the last set of my workout. I bent over, I picked the dumbbell up, and I felt the distinctive pop and twinge in my lower back. And I was just like, God, So basically what happens is it completely incapacitates me for about 2 days. And then I'm finally able to like walk around without noticeable pain. And then finally I can like start walking again. And then finally, like about 4 days after that, I'm able to like lift. I can like bench press and I can do other stuff. And now finally, like, 10 days later, I'm back to like, I'll be able to squat again. And it just happens, right? I got terrible disc issues and my SI joints all screwed up, blah, blah, blah. Story. However, no kidding. Yesterday was standard hour of cardio day. I did my hour on the Stairmaster. I felt fine. Like there was no pain involved. And, I look at a guy that I was on the Stairmaster next to who I roll BJJ with at the same gym. And he was like, hey, I haven't seen you. What happened? I was like, hey man, I hurt myself. I've been just clawing my way back to being able to get back on the mats. And I looked at him and I said, my goal this week is to get to the gym one time. I want to go roll just one time this week and then, shake the dust off, just get some rolls in. I'm not going to go super hard. I'm not going to be like training for a tournament. I don't think I'm Gordon Ryan. But what I want to do is I want to go roll one time this week because I know once I roll that one time, I'm going to go, okay, I could probably go again next week. How do I feel? Am I feeling okay? Like you have to be, I had to be realistic with myself. Like when I hurt my back, like I do every single 6 months or whatever the frequency is, I have it down to a science, but it's because I have to be realistic. Be like, hey, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to walk. I'm going to walk for 25 minutes. And as long as it doesn't hurt, I'm just going to walk slowly and I'm going to focus on every step not hurting. It sucks and it sucks to deal with, but you have to be realistic and then you have to give yourself a path to get there. And you just have to set realistic goals. And then what do I aspire to do? Yeah, I'd like to go back full time rolling and I want to get my next belt promotion and blah, 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 blah. But sometimes just doing the minimum is how you start and just showing up is enough.
Yep. I saw something and I thought maybe I was the only one, right? Is when I wake up in the morning to go go to work, go train, go whatever I'm going to go do, specifically train. I don't have to, like, I don't do any kind of self-talk. I don't go, like, all right, man, you got this or anything like that. And I
I
thought
totally do, because if not, like,
I don't, right? Like, it's just like, this is getting done, and there's
Yep.
no option. I don't give myself an out.
Mhm.
Unless I have like super like my schedule changes or whatever like that, and then I make sure I hit it in the afternoon or during lunch or something like that. But um like, the question was posed to Jocko from, I think, Russell Brand's, anyway, and they were talking about that, like, hey, what do you tell yourself in the morning? And then he's like, I don't tell myself anything. I just roll out of bed and I
I just
freaking go.
yeah.
Like, and so you hear some of these folks, and maybe it works for some people, right? I'm not throwing shade at them or whatever.
Mhm.
Like, that is just not me. I Any kind of self talk for me is, whether it's healthy or not, I don't know, is a bit negative,
Yeah,
but
not healthy. I can tell you
right,
straight
right,
up.
right. But
I wouldn't let somebody talk to you like that, so you shouldn't talk to you like that.
but at the same time, I also don't have a conversation with myself. It's,
Yeah.
hey, it's whatever time I've got to wake up, I wake up, roll out of bed, and I'm either training or I'm going to work or doing whatever that
Yep.
needs to be done. There's no decision matrix in that. You just
Yeah.
get up and you do it. I don't know. That's just me.
Excellence is a habit. I did get some good feedback. Our shirt, kind of came into my office, and he was talking about, he saw me in the gym, and he came, he's like, what time do you get to the gym in the morning? I was like, well, I hit the office usually about 5:45. I open up ops, I go in, I check sipper, because I can't check my sipper from home. So I make sure nothing's going on. I was like, and I try to get to the gym 6:15, workout, so that I'm, done with my workout, showered, and back to work at like 9 o'clock. And he's like, dude, that's ridiculous. How do you do that? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's just what I do. It's just a habit. It's not like I'm not doing it. I don't think I'm some superhero. It's just, that's what I got to do. So I just do that. It doesn't take, it might take some of that positive self-talk. Like, you might have to give yourself a little pat on the back those first couple mornings when you're waking up, like, okay, good job. You made it. You got to the gym this morning. Right. But I'll tell you what, after a month, after 6 months of doing that, Jocko, another great thing that he said is that discipline gives you freedom. I don't have to think and struggle through my morning. I get up, the alarm clock happens, I brush my teeth, and I get out the door as efficiently as possible so I can get to the gym. There's
Yep.
no thought process at all. It's just what I do. It's making my bed in the morning. I'm one of those dorks that makes my bed every single morning, whether I'm at a hotel or not. I get up, I make my bed, I clean my room, aka or a la Jordan Peterson, and then I get out the door. Because it's a habit. I want to be the type of person that has a clean and orderly space. That, and I'm extremely obsessive compulsive. And if I don't do that, it'll bug me. Like, if I don't,
I would say, don't worry, Trent. We're not going to ask to see your bed behind you. Since you're at a hotel.
It's made-ish.
Sort of. Yeah. But it's funny. It's like those things, those habits become excellence. And the more that you're disciplined in those things, it's just like we were talking about going through the pipeline and exceeding those minimum standards. That takes a lot of weight off of you. It takes a lot of decisions off of your plate. And if you don't have those aren't stressful. It's not something that you have to devote time and energy to. And eventually those habits just become excellence. And if you want to roll in some positive self-talk, the easiest way to start doing this is, I want to be the type of person that's an easy way to start establishing habits. I want to be the type of person whose physical fitness is never questioned. Okay, well, then you got to get up and you got to go to the gym and you got to work out hard and you got to work out specifically for what you're trying to achieve. I want to be the type of person that is an expert in my profession. Okay, well, then you need to study. You need to constantly work on your skills. You need to find ways to be better at the things that you're weak on. You need to find ways to support your strengths. There's a million ways that you can do that. And you can talk yourself in to a complete and total overhaul of your person in a very short amount of time. You'd be shocked how much that discipline opens up the door for you to really achieve. That's how you get to aspirational goals. I want to be the best PJ that I can be. Okay. Well, we need to figure out how. Shoot, move, communicate, medicate, tech, rescue. That's a good place to start. Okay, where am I weak? How can I be better? Now, how can I be a better leader? How can I be a better teammate? How can I be better at my additional duties? That's an easy way to start really having transformation.
Yeah. Well, and for me, it's so like obviously I have like 18 different voices in my head, and there's a lot of talk. Jared's like, I don't have like these talks with myself. I'm like, I don't understand anything about you. Like, there's the things
Right,
that are
yeah,
happening
right.
up here are it's chaos constantly, and so like I have to make like 6 decisions to like fall back on one of them to wake myself up in the morning to go to the gym, right? So like it's like my physical fitness decisions that I'm gonna wake up in the morning, blah 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 blah. And so when I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I'm tired, I don't want to go to the gym. It's like, but it's also have to balance that out with my decision that I have to work out today. And then as long as I can like reach onto one of those decisions that I've made, because I've made like 8 of them for like every voice in my head, it's like, well, then
Right.
when are we gonna work out today, Trent? Like, are you gonna do it after you pick up the kids from school? Are you gonna do it? When are you gonna do it? When are you gonna? And then you're gonna have to sacrifice something
Right.
that you want to do later on in the day. And so, like, yes, it gets easier over time, but like I can be the guy that I can go to the gym every day for a year, and then on day 366, I'll wake up and my brain's just gonna be like, bro, how fucking tired are you? You know, we'll bleep that one. Sorry. And then I'll have to,
No. We're not bleeping that. We drop F bombs in here.
No, let's
I'll
go,
rehack
baby.
the
That's why we're
process
on
all over
Rumble.
again.
Go check out the Rumble site.
But also I
For
find
But
that
when we
each
talk
platform.
about
yeah. Go ahead.
real quick, because we're talking about morning routines and discipline.
Ooh,
Check
look
out
at that.
trenchcoffeeco.com.
Oh.
Use the promo codes When's Ready. Check out their Brazilian Serato because that's my jam. I've already pinged Jeff and Jerica because I've got one more downstairs before I'm out. So, and
almost
I'm
on,
like a
Jeff.
little crack feed. I'm just fiending. But yeah. So they got a bunch of different blends. They got some merch too. They got some good hats, but definitely check them out. Trenchcoffeeco.com, promo code One's Ready. And then as we're talking about it, I know both of you guys don't leave the house or your hotel rooms without something in your hair. So what are you guys using?
Outer regs, baby. Come on, man. Listen,
Oh man.
the new haircut reg came out. They gave a little 362903 specifically states how long my hair can be. What if I told you you just throw a little bit of that pipe hitter in there, a little bit of extra, and your hair is magically within regs right away. It takes you from undisciplined and a terrible airman to a shining example of excellence in all you do, straight up. Uh, that was the cheesiest way. I can't wait to talk to the outer regs. I know, right? It just flew right off the tongue. Go check out outer regs pomade. Check that pipe hitter. That's my favorite one. The sea salt spray is also dope. So go check them out. Awesome dudes. I believe the code over there is One's Ready as well.
It is, yeah. There's so much integrity, so much integrity in that pomade.
Listen, so much
That's one of these
integrity.
sponsors.
Service before self.
You brought
That's
up
it.
the
Like
AFI
sometimes
and everything.
362903, Trent. How about you get into it, Big Blue?
No.
We'll start talking about the enlisted force structure and everything.
The Air Force just won the Commanders Trophy yesterday. They beat Army, so Army Navy played for second. It's the first time it's happened in 6 years. I just got a feeling deep inside of my soul that honor, courage, integrity, just a bunch of keywords that I feel good about. Thanks to the Air Force Academy, their fine football program, and most notably Outer Regs pomade.
Fighting Falcons.
Fighting Falcons. The small technical college, mostly for boys, tucked into the Colorado Rockies. What a hilarious thing to even explore.
Though. I'm going to try, me and the comment are going to try and go out there and do a little weapon school recruitment tour out at the academy.
I'll meet you there. The Springs is fantastic. I just so happen to know a 13 grad close to my heart. No big deal. I'm a 13 grad. I'm not a 13 grad. I make fun of her for being a 13 grad. The Air Force Academy is such a fun thing. I've been lucky to be involved in those circles to where there's a bunch of like no kidding grads that I get to hang out with all the time. It is so fun being a lowly enlisted sled dog around all of these people. Most of them are like industry and whatever else. I went to a wedding not too long ago. Beautiful wedding. It was awesome. The groom and the bride were both academy grads. They're now out, but the groom had like 8 groomsmen and they were all former academy football players. Everybody that was invited was an academy football player. or an academy grad of some sort. So it's like I'm standing in line to get a drink, and there's like a fighter pilot and all these other people. It was hilarious because I didn't even bother telling them what I did, and they never asked. I was dumbfounded by this. I was hilarious. I'd just be like, "What do you do?" And then they would talk about being a pilot for like 40 minutes, and I'd be like, "Tight." I would just go on with life. It was hilarious. I love the academy.
Oh, Trent, I interrupted you, buddy.
No, it's all good. I'm trying really hard to like keep my officer and
Your
academy
opinions?
opinions to myself right now.
Oh, do you just want to just break it open and talk about officer enlisted relationships and how you feel about them? Because I
Really
sure
take
don't.
really take a 90-degree turn on
Just
this.
I'll just say I refuse to support the Air Force Academy or recognize it as attached to my career in any way, shape, or form. So as we're going through these goals,
How dare you? They produce America's leaders, Trent.
there's also situational things that we need to be concerned about. So, like, I think if you look at someone like Goggins, right, and when he was on team, this dude was 100% focused on his physical fitness, at least from what I can tell. And I think since then he's admitted that he wasn't like the best team guy. And so as we set these goals, I think we also need to maintain or make sure that there's space in there, because as you go through the pipeline and then as you get on team, your goals might be like, hey man, I want to maintain this like 25 pull-ups that I can do for the rest of my career. And I'm not saying you can't do that, but I'm saying like when that goal starts to get in the way of like your operational goals and you need to reprioritize these goals every once in a while, that's when your minimum realistic and aspirational standards need to change up a little bit, because you can only shove so much into that sock before stuff starts sliding out, making a mess.
I will not say if they were.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Peach.
No, I was going to say, yeah, operational goals are huge because for right now, for the folks that are wanting to come in the pipeline or that are in the pipeline, like you don't have operational goals essentially, or maybe you do, but like whatever, you don't know what those goals look like or what they smell like or anything like that. Everything is, physically fitness or fitness type goals for you, passing the next event, right? But once you get on team, you're nailed it, Trent. Like I have heard that about Goggins in terms of wasn't as good as he could have been because he's an obsessive person, right? So he probably damn well could have been the best. And that's not to say that the three of us are anywhere even close to that, but
no, absolutely not.
You got to have, there's a balance. You can be the most physically fit, insane person, but some other things are going to give because you're dedicating so much time to being that, specimen of a person. Unless you're K-Dub, and then you can just be good at everything. But
he's so annoying. I'm so glad. I almost mentioned him. I know. I almost mentioned him earlier. I think we've given him more shout outs on this podcast than
we have. We got to get him on then, if that's the case, because everybody's going to be wanting to know, like, hey, who is this dude?
Human.
I can't wait.
You're going to have to avert your eyes though, because
he even looks good. He was on leave the other day, and he put on like a business casual sort of outfit, and just for 1 second, I was like, "Could we get an apartment?"
Maybe.
Wait. So I will say, I won't say. I will not give enough information out about this person, so I will not say if they were an officer or an enlisted person, but they were very high ranking. And this person is the complete and total archetype of that person that cares about the wrong things, right? So I would need something from this person, and they would fail time and time again. They were not a good leader. They didn't do a good job, but they constantly hung their hat on. This is when the AFSOC was still the PT test. They'd be like, "Well, I got a 700 on that AFSOC though, dog." Oh, like, who cares? Who cares that you can do these pull-ups, push-ups? How dare you? How dare you?
It's not me.
No.
But I got to be honest with you. I distinctly remember that because I was a mid-range leader at the time. And no kidding, it just dumbfounded me. It dumbfounded me every single time. You'd be like, what do you do all day? Like you PT, awesome, but then you're in your office and your work output, those operational things that you should be doing, they just weren't there, and I never understood it. And good dude. I don't have a bad thing to say about him as a personal guy, and he really did try hard. He loved the community and the career field. Got it. Totally cool. But that's a great example of like those goals have to change over time. Like, yeah, you want to maybe, and it's funny how if we're thinking about those three areas, those, minimum, realistic, and aspirational goals, I almost picture them like a bar graph. And sometimes you have to give more attention to one of them. Like, man, okay, me as an E8 for the time being, if I focus too much on trying to like be aspirational in everything, something else is going to give. I have to be able to accept a more realistic goal. Like for physical fitness, would I love to spend, 4 hours in the gym every day doing 2 workouts? Yeah, but I don't have that time in my workday. Like I just don't. Something else is going to suffer. I have to accept a lower standard, never below the minimums. I'd like to be closer to realistic, but those things, it's a sliding scale of what you give your time and attention to, and you have to find that balance. And your priorities are going to shift over time. Peaches being the world's #1 JTAC patch wearer, no big deal. He has to focus more on programmatics, and he has to focus more on large level leadership, and he has to focus more on investing in programs that are going to live on not just after he's gone, but 10 years afterwards. That means something else is going to he's going to have to accept a lower standard, never below the minimums, hopefully closer to realistic, but it's a sliding scale of what we give our attention to.
I just want to clarify. I am not the #1 JTAC.
It's on the internet now.
When-
If you edit this
when
out,
we
You're
when we put
Jack
yeah,
01.
when we put that
You're Zulu 01, dog. You were the #1.
no, when we put that in the intro several years ago, that was a joke. not like man.
yeah, but it's like remember those old boom boxes that you had back in the day, way back, that actually had like the equalizer on them.
Way back.
To me,
Mhm.
and this might be a stupid analogy, like when you're a student, you got your bass just like you do when you're younger. Your bass is cranked all the way up, right? And then as you go through, you have to like pull that bass down a little bit, get that mid level up there, and you start to see more of the picture. And then when you become like, the SEL or whatever, man, people need to know what those lyrics are saying. So like that bass, that mid range have to come down a little bit, and that higher end where you can hear the lyrics pop through a little bit better comes up a little bit more. But it's always trying to find that balance, and the music sounds different throughout your career.
Was this a did you get this from Senior NCO Academy?
No.
Please say yes.
Okay.
Please say
I don't
yes.
know if you know
the reason why
how
I'm
much
asking.
I listen. I don't. Not a good listener.
The only place worse than Senior NCOA is Ohio. Imagine going to Senior NCOA at Dayton, Ohio. I would oh my God.
So
Okay,
I just say that because
why?
somebody I just throwing it out there because when I went through in 2017, there was a I don't even know what the comment on is, if he's a chief or a senior or whatever he is, but he had a really thick Southern accent, and he was talking about like, all right, so your squadron or your command is a
terrible
car.
Southern accent. What are we doing here? I thought you said he had a thick Southern accent.
Well, hey man, hey, it's a car. And then
hey man,
you gotta dial in that radio just to get the right frequency to talk to your airman. And he starts talking about the tires of the car and everything, and everybody, like, he just lost everybody. Everybody's just like, dude, you were out to lunch, man.
What are we talking about right now?
Yeah. So no, there are good and bad things about PME. By far the best thing about PME is the people that you meet, because they are
100%.
They are that networking. Always be networking. That is in everything that you do. Always. Because you may not know the answer, and you don't have to know the answer, but you better know somebody who does.
Yeah. Senior NCOA for me, that was the worst part, is because it was during COVID and we had to do it all distance. I know. So, I mean, like, talking on teams and kind of meeting people that way, like I really do feel, because I do, for as much as we talk about, PME and we joke about it or whatever, PME and the professional education that we go through on the enlisted side, that's what makes the difference between us and Russia. A professionalized senior NCO and NCO Corps is what makes a professional military organization. And it's the difference between Russia not being able to do the most basic warfighting functions and us, period, point blank, right? So it's valuable. It's good. We give it crap because we're on the inside and we've been there, so we can bitch and moan about it. But the best part about it, yeah, but you can't. How dare you? I'm going to gatekeep you, and then I'm going to gaslight you. Because I'm a girl boss. But the best part about it is those connections that you make. Like right now, off the top of my head, I can think of a Rolodex of people that I'm like, I don't know how to fix this problem. And then I go into my phone and I'm like, wait a second. I know somebody that works over at that organization. I know somebody that knows somebody that works at that organization. That's the best part about it, is meeting those people, getting outside of your own lane and your own stovepipe and meeting people from those other career fields. And that was the one part about my senior NCOA that I wasn't super excited about. Was it was all distance learning. So, and it was in the middle of COVID, the pandemic. So you had to do everything virtually, and, Teams meetings are cool, man. I was 5 Teams meetings a day of senior NCOA stuff, and it just made it unbearable. What makes those courses bearable is being there with your friends, having a beer after work, and talking about the dumb stuff you were just forced to listen to all day. So,
or the scenarios that there's some wild shit that happens out there.
Wow.
Talking like when they say,
what's up, dude? Maintenance group, some of the wildest stuff. I thought that we did things a little bit non-standard. I would hear a story from a maintainer. I'd be like, yo, that's illegal, dog. You can't do that. And they'd be like, no, we do that all the time.
We know.
What? Shout out.
Yeah. Our folks are generally good, in terms of that don't have discipline problems. Yet when we do, it's usually 100 miles an hour. It's just it's a switch. It's on or off, all or none.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ones and zeros.
Hey, whatever.
Also, we're definitely not the most uncouth people or brash people in the military, which is surprising to some folks. We have a dark sense of humor, but
Yeah, I had to. We got a new. There's.
Oh yeah, ammo.
The commandant got a new secretary, and I realized that I always have my door open, and I kind of talk loud when I'm on the phone, and I'll just if I'm talking to somebody, and there's a lot of F-bombs being dropped, there's a lot of and I realized that, man, she can hear me, so I came out and I apologized, and she's like, that's not really that bad. I'm married to a maintainer. So
right.
She goes, and I worked at a maintenance squadron beforehand. She goes, you're pretty tame. Some of what I heard these people say to people and their own wives was pretty bad. I was like,
clutching my pearls
cool.
over. I was like,
yeah.
Oh my, goodness. Jeez. That's very harsh. Well, it 100%. I think by the way, I think we are tame comparatively to other people because they've never had to pay a physical penalty for a bad joke. All of us have. All of us have done things that we thought were funny and then just gotten absolutely smoked for it. Just operate conditioning for hours. Be like, that's real funny. Drop. And you're just like, oh no. Oh, I have screwed up.
I thought they'd find it funny.
They're like, it was.
So
but also,
fun stuff.
Do you know what's more funny?
I was
smoking you because you said that.
Yeah, dude. One of my favorite stories about being an instructor is I very rarely did I smoke teams. I smoked a couple teams, but they definitely deserved it. One of my friends just hit me up, and there was a really bad decision that was made on a suit night in San Antonio, and I was made aware of that decision, and I was unhappy. I was unhappy to the point where I made sure that we got out of training the next day, and we went over to the Chapman Annex away from prying eyes, and I absolutely destroyed people. I was like, what's the first flight out of here? And somebody was like, I have to leave at 2. I'm like, is anybody else on that 2:00 flight? And they're like, nope. I was like, cool. We worked out long enough that I told that guy and one other person that they were allowed to go to the airport, and then we stayed and continued. Like, it was bad. But one of my favorite things about the joke thing, my very good friend, he was an enlisted guy with me, went through INDOC with me. We did every single run together. Like, it was just a thing. Our pace was, we would dial in a 6:45 pace. He and I knew exactly what that was. And Mark and I would run every single run like that, to the point where the instructors like noticed it and then would make fun of us. Like, we'd get ready for the run and they'd be like, "Oh, let me guess. Love, Mark, you're going to run together." And we're like, "Well, yeah, it's working every single week." It was like our little thing. It was so good. He actually ended up tearing his quad. He had a partial tear of his quad going into the 6 mile eval. And because we had run together so long, he was able to, like, we were able to just basically get each other through that 6 mile run. He passed it with no problem. So anyway, he came back as a crow. So he crossed over. He's in Kirtland. We were down in Florida and he made a joke that he thought was funny. And it would have been funny if it was just me and him, but he was a student and he was a crow now. And he made the joke in front of some lower enlisted folks. And it wasn't at my expense. It was just a dumb joke. And I just looked at him and I was like, "Sir, of all the people that you thought was going to find that funny, and you chose me." And just, if you've ever seen the air get sucked out of a room, like, we were outside. If you ever see just like the students' faces that went from like, it just, yeah, they were just like, "Oh no." And I was like, "Let's see how funny that was, sir." And then I just went at it. It was pretty funny. Pretty funny. Looking back on it now, it was not funny for them at the time.
Trent, we totally derailed.
We've been derailing for an hour.
No, like the only last thing that I would say about it is I think Aaron said with the decision making process and all this other stuff, commander's intent, and like you need, and I mentioned it earlier, you need to know where you're at. You need to be your own commander, right? And you need to take that intent and modify it as needed, and then modify those goals as needed, and then to maintain your goals. But the you being your own canopy commander, you being your own commander, making your own intent, your own goals, and reevaluating on a regular basis is important to me. But that's the last serious thing I have to say.
Fantastic.
Well, I mean, I got nothing. I agree.
That was perfect. I don't
good
have
wrap
anything
up.
to say in return. Yeah, good wrap up.
Yeah.
What a great wrap up.
All right, folks. Well, next week we'll be talking about international relations with Canada and seeing how much they'll pay for Ohio, or how much we have to pay them for Ohio. Otherwise, make sure you go on there, like, subscribe, leave us reviews. What did we talk about today? Atarex pomade, Trench coffee. Go check that stuff out, and also go check out the hoodies and all the other merch on onesready.com. That's it for us here. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week. Later.
Later.